Hello and good afternoon. Today I would like to invite people to discuss healing or healing work, because ultimately we are trying to create healthy relationships, and in trying to create healthy relationships we are struggling because of our challenges with our relationships or in our relationships. We are struggling with or in our relationships because we need to have an awareness of tools. We need to have awareness of the skills that are necessary to improve our relationship outcomes. We need to learn to do things differently if we are going to improve our relationships. And for many of us, this is not taught anywhere. Nobody teaches us that we need to learn to do relationships in a healthy way to improve our relationship outcomes. But healing itself, healing for relationship, is a complex story, because it requires that we understand what we mean when we talk about healing. Because there are so many ways or so many modalities out there for healing. But the challenge is, how are we healing, or is the healing effective? This is the key question we are needing to ask ourselves. And what is it that makes healing ineffective? What is it that we are struggling with to ensure our relationships are healthy? This is because we need skills. We need healing that allows us to develop skills and tools to manage ourselves and to lead our lives in an effective manner. Because for many people in relationships, for many people who are struggling, the issue is about them trying to manage other people. It's about them trying to focus on the other person rather than focus on themselves. And when we do not focus on ourselves, when we are fixated on another person, we do not win. Because at the end of the day, we need to make sure we manage ourselves foremost before we try or we learn to manage another person. So what are we talking about when we talk about healing in relationships? When we talk about healing in relationships, we basically start with recognizing the advantages or the benefits of healing. The benefits of healing our relationships is to strengthen the self-relationship. And when we strengthen the self-relationship, we also strengthen our self-leadership. By doing that, we ensure we are the best people to lead our lives. You lead your life authentically. You make the foremost and first decisions in your life. You are the leader and the manager of your life. Where do you learn, or how do you learn to lead your life? You need to possess or to learn emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has got 5 key components. These are self-awareness, self-management, motivation, empathy, and social skills. These are components, but there are competencies you have to possess in those components, and these are emotional awareness. Then there is self-management. You have to be aware of your emotions and those of others in the end, and you have to manage yourself. And you also have to have social awareness. Social awareness only is possible when you have developed self-awareness. Because social awareness is the awareness of the cues in your environment and the emotions of the people around you. That is what social awareness is about. And how does social awareness help? Just like self-awareness or emotional awareness helps with self-management, social awareness helps with relationship management. That means when you are socially aware, you are then able to manage your relationships with other people in society, even your self-relationship. But obviously, the whole point, the main goal is that you develop a strong self-relationship. That is what you are aiming towards foremost. And this self-leadership helps you also with decision making. Because healing needs to empower you to be independent in your decision making. And those decisions you make need to be in your best interest. Because all of us can make decisions for ourselves. All of us have got the final say in our lives. But are the decisions we are making in our best interest? This is what you are needing to ask yourself. So what do we mean, or what do we need to heal our lives and to develop emotional intelligence? I always like to talk about Stoicism because I am a Stoic myself. I live by the philosophy because it does help you and me to improve our self-relationship. Because Stoicism emphasizes responsibility through the dichotomy of control. Focus on that which is in your control, which is what we are doing now when we talk about the healing dichotomy of control. So what do we need? What do we need to develop emotional intelligence? I like to talk about the 4 dimensions of existence, but I'm not going to explain further until later on this. Because I need to emphasize the point that sometimes the reason why we are struggling with healing, the reason why our healing modalities or the people who are helping us are not effective, could be that they've got a focus or emphasis on one modality, or they focus on one area of human existence. And so the other areas suffer, and when other areas of you suffer and they are not addressed, that means you can enter or suffer an existential crisis. There are people who have claimed or have done or have said to have done some work, some inner work, but they are struggling. The reason why these people struggle sometimes is because of the healing approach that emphasizes the psychological. And then we also have some people who do healing work that emphasizes the spiritual. But look, we also have other people who probably don't do healing work per se, but they focus on healing, in brackets, and when they are saying they are healing, it's more about their social life. They put emphasis on their social circles and they think they are healing. They improve their social life. They go out and meet people. They go places and travel and all that, which is amazing. And they feel like they are healing. And then a relationship comes along and they are struggling. Why? Because they focused on the social aspect of their healing, and they did not tackle the other dimensions of existence. So which are these dimensions of existence we are talking about? We are talking about the physical. Our physical dimension, our physical health matters, and it does need to be addressed when we are healing. we also need to tackle the psychological, which for most people is the main focus. When they talk about healing, they hear psychological, which is amazing, because by looking at the psychological, we are addressing a lot of our issues, and it's important that we do so. Then there is the spiritual, which some people also focus on so much, such that they probably end up neglecting other aspects of their well-being. And then there is the social. So physical, social, psychological, and spiritual. These are the 4 dimensions of existence which need to be addressed when we are doing healing work. The next thing we need to look at when we do healing work is inner child work. So inner child work is important. In fact, if we are going to do inner work, it is necessary and it is mandatory to address childhood trauma. We all have some kind of trauma. We all have some kind of abandonment trauma, especially. We all have some kind of challenge from our childhood. We all have some kind of stuff which need to be addressed from our early life. Because in our early lives is where we learned how we do relationships. This is where we learned what we mostly do and how to do life and how to relate to other human beings and our environment. So it is necessary, it is important to do inner child work, to reparent the inner child. Because for many of us, the way that we were brought up was such that there were missing elements from how we were brought up, which were necessary for us to grow into functional human beings. And then for others, even for us again, there are some things that didn't happen, which were necessary for us to grow into functional human beings. So because those things didn't happen when we were growing up, we are needing to reparent ourselves. In other words, we are needing to be the parents who are there for us to address our needs that were not met, or our unmet needs. And additionally, apart from being the parents we need or needed in our early childhood, we also have needs that continue to come up in life every day. So we need to parent ourselves. So there are 2 things we are needing to learn to do. We need to reparent ourselves, and we need to learn to parent ourselves. Those are 2 things. Reparenting is about addressing our earlier childhood traumas and any missing elements or any adverse experiences. And then parenting, self-parenting, is about addressing our present needs, because sometimes we don't tend to think of it that way. You start thinking about it when you see people who are self-neglecting, especially in the psychological aspect, where they then neglect themselves to the point that they do not live unhealthy relationships, and they also do not take care of themselves mentally and even physically and in other spiritual aspects. So this is what we are needing to do, to learn to parent and reparent our inner child. And to do that effectively, not just to reparent, but especially to parent ourselves and to live in relationships in a healthy manner, we are needing to develop a system of living. Again, this comes from the Stoic. Stoics live according to systems. And what helps even when we go to work is we've got systems. And those systems help us to function in the work area. These systems are arranged and organized in a way that helps us to work effectively. So that same thing happens and is necessary in our own lives. We need to develop systems which help us to function in a way that is effective, that make us effective. We need to function in a way that improves our relationship outcomes. We need to function in a way that is helpful for our relationships, because we need a village. We need many people in our lives, different kinds of people, in order for us to function. So it is important that we develop a system of living. And the system of living that I recommend, if you don't have one, is love on 3 levels. Love on 3 levels is about you first. You taking charge and taking care of your needs and of your life. You being the first person to make decisions in your life, which is why you need to foremost work on your self-relationship, to reparent yourself and strengthen your self-leadership. That is very key when you do inner work. And so what do you do on that first level? Because there's a first level, which is you. There's a second level, which is your circle, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your neighbors, people who are close to you, and your support group. And then there is the third level, which is your purpose or the greater good. So what do you do on the first level? This first level is the key level in your healing, because it will determine the outcomes of all your other levels and all your other relationships. And the first level is what determines the quality of your life, whether you live with tranquility, peacefully, or you continue to go into crisis after crisis, whether your relationships thrive or they struggle. It's important to look into what you do on the first level. The first level, you need to learn self-leadership, self-management. That comes from you being aware of your emotional currents. Why are emotions important? Because our emotions are our guidance system. This does not just work on the psychological level, it also works on the spiritual level. Your emotions are what you use to guide you. Your intuition and things like that, in your gut and things, they all fall under your emotions. You've got to feel in order to understand yourself and your environment. So you need a tool to use your emotions to make decisions in your best interest. And there is a tool called SIFT-SEM. SIFT-SEM is a multi-tool or tools in a tool, because what SIFT-SEM does, it helps you to sit in quality time with your emotions and to parent yourself, to tune into your emotions, to understand what they are trying to tell you, and then to use those emotions to create decisions in your best interest. And if you do not tune into your emotions and use them to guide you to make best interest decisions, what happens is you plunge into a crisis because your emotions are not addressed. And when your emotions are not addressed, they are not going anywhere. You are just going to stay stuck with them, and they are going to make you reactive. And this is where your emotional baseline is going to be off at all times or most of the time, because you are not tuning in to your emotions and you are not releasing those emotions. You are like a little child, or you've got a little child in you. Let's call that child your inner child. And that child gets triggered in life so many times because you hold your views of the world. You've got your own perspective of the world. And so when you go out into the world, you will meet people like you who hold their own views of the world and who have got their own perspective of the world. And these people might trigger you with their perspective because the little child in you believes their values and their perspective matter. And when then they are challenged out there in the world, it can feel like a trigger. So that message then comes to you as discomfort. And so what you are needing to do in that moment is to soothe your inner child. But how do you soothe what you don't know? You have to tune in to understand the message your inner child is bringing to you. And when you understand that message by using the SIFT-SEM, you unravel what you are feeling, you unravel why you are feeling that way, you unravel the bodily manifestation of your trigger, you unravel the pre-triggers or exacerbating factors of your trigger, you unravel the root cause which leads you to unmet needs, you unravel the way then you can parent yourself, and then you soothe yourself, you parent yourself, and you create a solution for your situation. Many people do not realize that the problems, the crisis that they have can be resolved, can be sorted by sitting with somebody to learn tools, to learn such a tool as SIFT-SEM and find out what's happening in their bodies, what their emotions are trying to say. And once they have established that, to brainstorm solutions in order for them to then solve their issue or their problem. And if they are patient enough and continue to soothe their impatient inner child, then they can gradually regain control by resolving those issues one day at a time. But it requires intention, it requires time, it requires accountability, it requires accepting feedback, it requires wanting to change and wanting better for yourself, and it requires community, because we are traumatized in the community and we heal in the community. So it is important that we utilize the community where we were traumatized to get better and heal our lives. That is very key. So then, apart from the SIFT-SEM, in fact, the SIFT-SEM is part of a self-care routine. When you wake up in the morning, make it a habit to practice self-care. If you pray, you start with your prayer, which includes gratitude for the day. You need affirmations to reframe your thinking, to restructure your thinking. You need meditation just for stillness. You need to train your mind to be still, or your body to be still. And also cathartic shake. You can do a cathartic shake just to release endorphins. It's very important for you when you wake up in the morning to get ready for the day, and you can hug yourself like a parent would hug a child they love. Why do we do this? Because when we get our young baby up in the morning, we hug our baby, we talk to our baby, we treat them really well, because we want them to feel loved. We are needing the same treatment in our lives, even though we are older. But there is nobody who is going to come and hug us and speak kindly to us, repeat affirmations in the morning. There is nobody who is going to do the cathartic shake for us, to say thank you for life, to practice gratitude, and to meditate for us. We have to be the ones doing this for ourselves, because we are adults now. So it is important that we invest in ourselves, commit to ourselves, and start practicing self-care when we wake up in the morning, so that we feel loved by us. Because for many people, they try to outsource self-care by expecting a partner to do 1, 2, 3 for them, which they cannot do for themselves. But that doesn't work, because you are needing to do this work for you. And self-care is part of your healing. And self-care is very important in your healing, because self-care is the part of your healing, the self-work that makes you feel loved by you, that makes the little child in you feel loved by you and nurtured, and repeated and consistently done from morning to the end of the day, watching what you eat, whether you move your body, and watching what you put in your body, watching what you ingest spiritually, socially, physically, and psychologically. You will begin to feel safe. There are so many aspects of self-care we need to look into. I know some people, they kind of look at the body part of self-care, the outer body part of self-care. Self-care is more than that. In fact, self-care needs to start from the inside, going outwards. When you practice self-care in that manner, it works better for you, because then you are strengthening your inner core, your self-relationship. You are strengthening your self-worth. You are making that little child in you feel seen. You are strengthening your self-confidence. Because if you take care of yourself, if you get up in the morning and you nurture yourself like a baby, like the baby you love, then when you go out there in the world, you are not going to accept anyone treating you any less. So it's important that we understand our self-care habit and practice it, as well as making sure before bed, we also practice a self-care routine. Throughout the day, mindfulness, segment intending. Throughout the day, we need to look into what we are feeding ourselves, physically, spiritually, socially, and psychologically. Elimahai. And at the end of the day, before bed, we are needing to assess our day after doing an objective evaluation of a single trigger per day, and assess the day and revisit 3 people who inspired you, someone who triggered you maybe, someone who helped you maybe, someone you helped maybe. Things like that will help you to improve your reflection and also to review your day. What did I do well and where do I need to improve? Because it's necessary to assess those aspects of your day. Just like you ask your child at the end of the day, how was your day at school? What happened today? Did you have a good time? Was there a problem? This is what you are needing to do for yourself, for the child in you, so that they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel acknowledged. And if you have done your journaling of the system, you can review any developmental needs, any areas you need to improve on, any areas you still need to address, any areas that could do with any improvements or any adjustment. So that is very important for you. You are needing on a daily basis to assess your hobbies. You need to have hobbies or interests, and you need to tick yourself every day. Have I done a hobby today? Have I invested in my interest? And have I also been creative? Because I need to talk about this later, especially about creativity, because it can also keep people stuck. Have I done something for somebody out there? We have got 5 love languages. We can give to community through these 5 love languages. Many people think that giving is about money. It's not about money only. We give with the 5 love languages. Money can be there. Physical items can be there. Words of affirmations, advice, teaching people, giving people information is also there. Acts of service, doing something for someone who needs something done is there. Quality time, spending quality time, volunteering is there. Giving someone a pat on the back, a hug is there. So it's important that we look into what we can do for people out there as a gift. We all have some kind of gift. Look into something you are good at and offer it to society, because that can help you to prevent being stuck. For the 3 levels of love, we have now spoken about you. And now we're talking about your second level, which are friends, family, your colleagues, your neighbors, people you usually work with, whether working on a social level or working on a professional level. People you know, that's your second level, because you do things together, you interact, your neighbors, and there's also your healing circle. You need to have a healing circle, because that healing circle is a go-to place in the moments where you are struggling, in the moment where you have a crisis. Don't start looking for friends, for healing circles when you have a crisis, as if they are an emergency service. People need also to know that you are always there, or you are sort of there in the background. You might not be there all the time, but as long as you connect with those people every so often, it matters that when you are also having a crisis, these people can support you rather than wait until you have a crisis when you dump them because you were in a relationship, which sometimes happens. So that's important. You also need an accountability person, or in that healing circle, you need to be very specific because it's easy to be in circles, but you also need accountability. You need people who can teach you tools and skills to help you in life. That is very important. And then on level 3, this is where your purpose is, your life purpose and helping the greater good. Learn to perform random acts of kindness or acts of kindness, and learn to have a purpose in your life, something you do, something that considers that there is a higher power out there or something higher, bigger than you. It's important that you have a purpose because this will help you in times of a crisis, that you are not fixated on you. When you have a purpose, you might find that sometimes after regulating yourself, that purpose can help you to distract. We don't seek distraction before regulating ourselves, but it's quite okay, acceptable to distract when we have regulated ourselves and we've soothed our inner child, because we need to be doing other things. We can't be soothing this inner child all the time. Otherwise, it ends up as an obsession with our inner world, and then we forget there's an outer world out there. So this inner child reparenting I spoke about, there is a toolkit out there with 32 units of inner child work. And inner child work, as I said, it covers areas where you experience trauma, and there is a simple guide around what areas you might need to look at, especially in that toolkit. And it's easier to pick up things that happened in your early life, in your childhood, in order to address them. And whenever you pick up something that happened, you can use the SIFT-SEM toolkit to then parent yourself, to parent that child, because you can bring up the emotions because they are still there in your system, and you can bring them up, and then you can parent your inner child and soothe them. And if there's any solutions you want to create around that, or if it's going to take a little bit of time, you can keep going back to it, because you are going to need to do a SIFT-SEM per day, at least 90 days, at least. And then after that, you can see how you are doing. And by that time anyway, you will be able, hopefully, to do a SIFT-SEM very quickly without staying on it for a long time, because you will be competent at doing SIFT-SEM. And SIFT-SEM is where you develop your emotional intelligence. If you do it effectively, if you stay on it, you will develop effective and proper, authentic emotional intelligence, not the intelligence of the head or the emotional intelligence that people just talk about in the workplace, but you actually develop deeper and authentic emotional intelligence because you are now aware of your emotional currents, and you become more aware of your of the social currents. Because I have done SIFT-SEM with people, there is an aspect of SIFT-SEM that can be challenging. It's the role reversal, situational role reversal. People can struggle with that. I've had to struggle with people and sometimes pause the work because they were struggling with putting themselves in the shoes of other people. But you cannot develop social awareness and develop emotional intelligence unless and until you also look at that aspect of the human being, because you also make mistake. We are not validating or condoning what people do to traumatize others, but we are saying we are human beings. And if we have to heal, to move forward, we are going to have to look at these people differently, like human beings, and recognize how flawed they are, just like we are flawed also to a point. So that is important. So inner child reparenting is very important. I'm not going to go a lot into that because it's a long story. If someone wants to do inner child reparenting, I have said about the requirements, some of them anyway, or most of them in what we have spoken about. So that is important. You want to develop, the aim of inner child reparenting is to develop emotional intelligence. And interestingly enough, you also use emotional intelligence to reparent your inner child. So as you use emotional intelligence, you also develop emotional intelligence, or you strengthen it, which is what you need. And you need the 4 dimensions of existence to address all 4 dimensions of existence. I'll tell you why later. And you need to develop a system of living so that you've got a framework for living. When things go wrong, you look at that framework and think, where is my problem? I've got my framework here with me, my circle, and my purpose. I am struggling right now. Where is it that I'm struggling? Exactly. What's causing my struggle? You will find out in your framework what is going wrong, which I will discuss a bit later with most people. Then let's talk about, okay, let's go into that. Why do people get stuck? So if you are doing this work and you've got the systems of living and you are stuck, look into number 1. If you don't have the system, that might be the problem. You are stuck because you don't have a system of living. Number 2, creativity. We have a creator in us. All of us. We have, and we are part of a creator who created us. And they left some creation or creativity in us, which we are supposed to utilize. And when we are stuck, we need to look at that. Am I creating? Because that matters. Number 2, purpose. If you don't have purpose, you are aimless. If you are not helping other people, you are me fixated. And that can actually be quite a challenge because you can't get out of your little circle that you have created for yourself. And so it can be difficult for you to expand. So you need a purpose. And lack of support, especially support groups. Not groups on Facebook where you post for advice. Proper support groups where you get tools. That's the difference. Groups like where people meet, there's so many of them, new groups, small groups, big groups. There's bigger groups like the 12-step programs. They're quite good. It doesn't matter whether you are in another little support group for healing. 12-step programs can be a great place to learn the dichotomy of control, which is essential for your healing so that you focus on what's within your control and avoid struggling uphill trying to control other people, which is another reason why you might be stuck, because you don't apply the dichotomy of control. You try to control other people, but you don't focus on trying to control your own life. If you are finding that your focus is more about controlling a partner, their movements, whatever they do, and their choices, recognize that you are struggling with self-control because you need to take charge of your own life. Find out where you can focus that control in your own life to improve your own life. And then the other reason is a lack of willingness to change. And this can be subconscious. We can be so traumatized that we are not willing to change. So look into that. Do I really want change? Yes, maybe at the surface, you might say yes. But if you are not doing something about it, if you are not proactive about seeking tools that can get you out of your hole, then you are not ready for healing. And that is important to recognize in yourself. Many people are at that stage. They do have access to the resources. They see a video, they see an advert, they see a quote, and they want to resonate with the quote a lot. I usually see people when they see like a video talking about good people are like this, and then you see people commenting a lot. Yes, we are like this and all that, which is fine. It's possible. But for many people, it's just resonating with this point, but actually they are not doing the hard work. Healing itself is messy. Healing itself requires that you do the dirty work. You delve into your emotions. Every single day, you find out why you are triggered. Every single day, you address those triggers and you parent yourself. Just like every single day, a mother will parent their baby. A mother will attend to their baby when they are crying. That is the same thing with you. When you are triggered, you need to be attending to your inner child, attending to yourself and parenting yourself, just like a mother who is parenting their young child until that child grows. Bit by bit, mother might not need to lift up baby so much. At some point, baby will be crawling. At some point, baby will be standing and walking. And at some point, mom will not need to lift up the baby. That is the same thing with you. You need to walk with your inner child and start the work intensively, initially, intense inner work, until you start to win the baby off a little bit, until you start to do things just on a regular basis, but without the intensive approach. And in your intensive stages, intensive period, you need a co-parent. You need someone to work with you. You cannot do it on your own. This is why people go to therapy. But there's all forms of healing out there. And we are recognizing some people have been lucky to get therapeutic interventions. When I talk therapy, I usually like to say all healing modalities are therapy. But there's also what we specifically call therapy. A lot of people are struggling when they go to therapy. They are still in crisis. There is a reason why, because therapy is a business. But some people are lucky. They get a good therapist, someone who's effective and efficient, and they get support and they get to know their problems. And I have noticed a lot of people come, like on Facebook, they post they are in therapy, but they are looking for advice on Facebook. And to me, that's quite disturbing, because when you are paying for such a service, it should provide you with tools to improve your life. But I don't think that is the case. I don't think that's what happens for some people in therapy. And some people go for years and years, and it still doesn't make much difference for them. And sometimes you notice how someone communicates, that there is a crisis there, but they are in therapy. So we are needing to look into these modalities. And so you need a co-parent, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a sponsor in 12-step programs, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a coach. Some people are better off. In fact, coaching can actually be more effective in some cases. I am not saying don't go to therapy. I am saying sometimes the coach's approach is different, which is why sometimes you've got people who have left they don't use their registration to work as psychologists, because there are so many limitations for them to work the way that they want to work. But it does work for other people, and it's there for a reason. So you can stay on it. The other reason why people stay stuck is they don't want feedback. And the problem is feedback is hard to accept. So if you are struggling with feedback in your healing, and some people even have conflict with their therapist or the person who's healing them. And to me, that should be okay. When I work with someone and they feel like there is conflict, I usually say from the get-go, if I'm working with you and we have an issue, you have an issue with me, I need you to sift it. Do an objective evaluation of the trigger, because that's how we strengthen our relationship. That is very important to do. But where some people then run in therapy, or some people who resist because they struggle with feedback, they don't want to be told what to do. But I can tell you this, sometimes when you are healing, you will need to listen, because you have had patterns for a long time that you are struggling with when in adulthood. So for those patterns to go or to change, for you to replace those patterns, you might need someone to say something to you. If you are having a problem with tone, if you're having a problem with how someone communicates, that's fine. You can communicate that. But sometimes when you get to understand someone, you might realize actually it's not that they are being funny, but maybe that's how they are communicating. But yes, we can all adjust. We can all adjust. The teacher and the student can both learn. Nobody is beyond reproach. And the redundant healing modalities can also keep you stuck, where you've got these modalities which just don't do much. And for example, like I said, therapy is a business model. So it can be difficult for some people. You just fork out money for a long time and there's nothing effective, but it's designed for that, for you to keep paying and coming back, but you might not see a difference. For some people, it's okay. They might actually go there and get something out of it, and that is good. But there are so many redundant healing modalities. What I picked up, part of it is because it's one-sided approach. It's about psychological only. You cannot heal a human being psychologically only. If you are going to heal a human being, if you are going to help a human being to get out of their crisis, their problem, you need to look at the four aspects of the human: the social, the physical, the psychological, and the spiritual, because those are all part of the human being. A human being is a spiritual being in a physical body. A human being is a social creature, social animal. A human being is a psychological being. A human being is a physical being. So all those things, all those areas, all those dimensions need to be addressed. And finally, I'll talk to you about relationship systems, which is the reason why we are here. Because we do our inner work, because we are struggling in our relationships. We are struggling on how to relate with our partners, our love interest. And for some people, they end up giving up. They end up blaming the other people. Yes, there is some blame there, but it's important, like I said from the start, the aim of healing is to improve and strengthen your self-relationship. If you strengthen your self-relationship, you can live with or without a partner, without many complaints. But let me say something there. It's very important and fulfilling to have a partner, but the right partner. And the problem is, this is actually a distinction we need to make. The right partner, a healthy relationship, rather than just having a relationship. Because it doesn't help to just be in a relationship which is not healthy, because there's no quality of life. So what are you supposed to do? You need to strengthen your self-relationship so that if you meet somebody, then that person is not going to see you as a burden, or you are not going to carry that person as a burden, because it can go both ways. You might be a burden yourself, or this person might be a burden to you, and you are carrying them because of your unhealed trauma, because you don't have a strong self-relationship, because you are struggling with self-worth. So, relationship systems, we need accountability in order for us to improve our relationships. That's why we need love on 3 levels. We need to have our own tools to manage ourselves and our relationships. And we need accountability and community. This is because we will struggle in our relationships, whether it's at work, whether it's with our children, whether with our partners or our friends. We will struggle sometimes. But when we are in community, in healthy community, we are going to get the support which make us feel, which lead us to not feel isolated. Because the point of us healing is because we are social beings. We are mainly healing for ourselves, but ultimately we are healing for our relationships. whether it's for our children, whether it's for our partners, whether it's for the world. That's ultimately who we are healing for. So in order to avoid a feeling of isolation and to have a sense of belonging, we need to stay in communities which are healthy, communities which can carry us and support us in our times of need and in our times of happiness, communities to celebrate with, and communities to talk to when we have got challenges. That is an important aspect of the human, but the communities need to be healthy. Welcome, everybody. Communities need to be healthy if they are going to sustain us. So if we are going to date, to start dating, we need to have the tools, we need to have the skills, we need to have awareness of our own traumas and our own dynamics, and we need to have awareness of human dynamics. And then we go out there and meet people. And if we have done the work, we are going to then be able to screen the people we are going to meet. And when we screen the people we are going to meet, we can choose better. I'm not saying we choose perfect, but we can choose better, because if you know yourself and you've got boundaries, you've got awareness of your trauma, and then you go out there, you can assess people's behaviors, you go out on dates, you assess people's behaviors, and you can be able to say, this is not good for me, so I think I'm going to keep looking, and you screen people who you meet. That is very important during the dating stages, and you screen even when you start dating. You don't hold on, but that only comes about when you have worked on your self-worth. Because when you have worked on your self-worth, you are not just going to accept people because you need someone. Thank you so much for tapping. Thank you, IKP. You are not just going to settle. You are going to take the time to get to know people, and you are going to make sure that if there are red flags, you are going to let go of the people who are not healthy for you. That is very important. And then when you get into a relationship, we can support you with maintenance. Relationship, once you are in, that's not enough. And this is the problem again. People get into a relationship, they think that's it, and they relax. But you are with a stranger, and things can go wrong. This stranger can leave anytime. So what you are needing to do is to make sure you keep feeding the container. You keep feeding your self-container, your self-relationship, parenting your inner child, as well as also feeding your relationship container. Why do you do that? Because when you parent your inner child, you keep evaluating yourself, you keep monitoring your triggers, and you parent yourself. When you are triggered, you show up in an authentic way, not just for yourself, but for the relationship. And so you maintain boundaries in the relationship. And where you maintain boundaries in the relationship, it's easier to maintain a healthy relationship. And where you maintain boundaries in the relationship and you've got a sense of self-worth, you are not going to put up with bad behavior. And where you maintain boundaries in the relationship and your partner messes up, you are not going to stay around them. You are going to decide to leave if things really go bad. And you are not going to allow things to go really bad, because it's not in your nature to allow your inner child to suffer. You suffered enough in childhood. Why should you continue to suffer in adulthood when you can take responsibility? So that's what you do to maintain and repair your relationship. And if there's problems, there is going to be problems in relationships. You know how to address conflict in a healthy way, because again, you are regulated and you have learned communication skills. So that is important. You won't let things go in the relationship. And then the next thing you do, the next relationship is infidelity. We have a lot of this. Again, when you have a struggle with infidelity and you have worked on yourself, or you are working on yourself, the first thing you do, the first thing I recommend to people is separation straight away. Why do I say that? Because there is a problem when you stay with someone who is cheating on you. The problem is that when you stay together, you will start being abusive. Yourself. If you are mad about it and you are not happy with it, you can start being abusive. How? You may ask me. You start asking them for their phone, for their whereabouts. You start asking them who they are with. That's abuse. It gets abusive with time. That is not a healthy strategy. And also, if you just stay, they don't have anything to respect because you have not respected yourself. Because people who are self-respecting, if a partner cheats, they are not going to put up with that. And I want to put a caveat there. I'm not asking you to end your relationship, but the space you create in the separation can actually be good for your relationship because it allows your partner to decide whether they want to come back. It also allows you to decide whether you want to stay with them. And in this space, your partner also suffers consequences. That's the thing. Thank you so much, IKP. This partner feels consequences because if you are with somebody, they cheat on you and you say to them, we are separating, they are going to feel the consequences and they are going to stop comparing, because when there's two of you, there's comparison there. There's this person and that comparison can be a problem because it doesn't increase your chances of reconnecting with your partner in a healthy way. So separate with your partner when they cheat and then work on yourself. Work on your self-trust, because until and unless you are able to trust your partner a little bit, it's better not to go back there. Or if your partner does not give you some reassurance that they would do 1, 2, 3 to make changes, do not go back there. But initially separate and then work on yourself, and then at some point come together and have a discussion. Have a discussion about what you both want. They might not want you anymore, because the problem is some people don't realize when someone cheats, they might cheat because they want to leave. But I usually say to people, even if they want to leave, if you separate straight away, it just throws things into a crisis, a chaos. Why? Because they were not expecting that. They were not expecting you to leave first. So now there's no peace where they are and they don't know what to do most of the time. Sometimes they will go, sometimes they will, but in many cases, they will start to get confused, and that can just ruin their other relationship. And then now you are doing your work, and maybe if you do a reconnection properly, then you might get back together and start a newer relationship. But then again, also, if you start a newer relationship, you've decided to go back, you need to heal and you need to make sure. Thank you so much, IKP. You need to make sure that you are doing relationship in a healthy way, in such a way that your relationship is safe. Because when you create boundaries, when you separate when someone cheats, when you don't put up with bad behavior, you are protecting yourself and you are protecting your partner. You are basically protecting your relationship. And that is what matters most. But what you need to work on with the tools, the self-regulation tools, when you separate, is the fear of losing this person. Because some people will say, if I stop sleeping with my person, then they are going to go to that person. Let them go. But I can assure you, usually they will stop. They will stop because there are consequences. And even if they try to go temporarily, they might come back because they are worried about what you are thinking. Because that's the human mind. When something is there, we are very comfortable. But when someone then leaves, we are starting to think, oh, I thought she was just going to be here forever. Or I thought he wasn't going to go anywhere. I didn't think he was going to leave me. And now he or she is plunged into a crisis. And then he or she wants to come back. And they want to start over again. Especially men. Men usually, when you do that, they usually come back. Women usually tune out. That's the problem. By the time a woman decides to leave, they are far gone. They don't want to come back again. And when you reconnect, I'll tell you about the reconnection when we talked about breakup. And when people are in a relationship, we've got a tendency to tell people to leave. If you go on social media, there's the first advice: leave, leave, leave. That advice is counterproductive, because for many people we tell to leave, they don't leave anyway, especially in a toxic relationship. What we need to teach people, we need to teach people how to live with or without a partner. That is empowering. We can tell you that it's a good idea for you to leave this relationship, but the best thing for you is to learn to live with or without this person. This is where you need love on 3 levels. You need to learn skills and tools to manage yourself. You need to have your hobbies and interests. You need to have your circle. You need to have your creativity. You need to learn to be self-sufficient. You need to be doing self-care. You need to have a purpose in life. When you do that, your focus now, we are inviting you to shift focus from your partner to yourself. If someone is not treating you right, focus more on yourself. And this is where you need the circle to hold you accountable and other people to talk to. Because it's the isolation that can end up with you getting stuck in this relationship. But if you start talking to communities and getting tools, and you are getting support and advice to take care of yourself, to put yourself first, then eventually you are going to start feeling uncomfortable. Hi, lovely. Welcome. You're going to start feeling uncomfortable. Hi, Kobe Ray. You're going to start feeling uncomfortable with the bad treatment. And with time, you will get to a point where you can't stand it anymore, because you look after yourself well. If you look after yourself well, let's say we know about the skin. If you do your makeup and you look really nice, or you're wearing your lovely suit, and then you go out there and someone puts something on it, you won't be happy, because you've done so well for yourself. So you're not going to put up with somebody putting dirt on you. And that's the same thing. If you do your self-care and you look after your inner child well, it's going to be difficult for you to accept bad treatment. You are going to begin to be uncomfortable when your partner is treating you badly. So that's why you need to invest in yourself. So that's what we need to teach people first. Before we teach people how to live in a relationship, we need to teach them how to live with themselves, with or without a partner. And they can do that in that relationship. And they can do that before they go to a next relationship. It's important that we teach people to live with or without a partner. We empower them. And then breakups. Breakups, I was saying, we don't do enough for people after a breakup. A breakup is painful. A breakup is debilitating. It's life-changing. People go on medication after a breakup. People can go crazy after a breakup. People struggle after a breakup. So we need to do more for people after a breakup. We need to support people. That's why we need communities. That's why we need accountability. That's why we need tools for people, so that when someone breaks up, straight away we trigger their healing. No contact or parental contact only. Start your emotional journaling straight away. As soon as the breakup starts, start writing and regulating emotions. Get accountability and community, and talk to the people in the community and start your healing. You can start with the journaling initially, maybe for 7 days, and self-care. You start looking after yourself, because when you break up with somebody and you don't look after yourself, you will be missing the routines in the relationship. Because the reason why people struggle after a breakup, the reason why people end up with a crisis following a breakup, is because they are trying to replace the routines and the rituals that they had in the relationship. You need to understand this. And so what the people would do is they will try to meet those needs, to cover those rituals or replace those rituals in any way possible, in any way, and in any dysfunctional way that they come across. So we need to teach people to replace activities. straight away when the relationship ends, we need to teach people how to trigger replacement practices. Thank you so much, IKP. Because if we don't trigger the replacement activities, this person is going to look for, like, sleeping around with people. They are going to look for their ex. They are going to be calling their ex 24 times a day, and they are going to turn up at their ex's workplace. They are going to be desperate, and they are going to just do anything that they can in order to hold on to something. Because we are humans of habits. They are going to go shopping. They are going to do whatever it is that's dysfunctional out there. So we need to help people and teach them that there is more in life than that just relationship, that relationship that's ended. There's people who love them out there. So even though they might not have the same routine, they can have replacement routines. And you will find that if you teach someone healthier habits, they wake up to themselves, they do their self-care, they do their self-hugs, they speak to themselves kindly, they are covering all the love languages, they do their creativity, their journaling, their hobbies, and their exercise, they move the body, and then they go out and meet family or friends when they are ready, or talk to somebody on the phone or in groups, or they also, take part in their purpose. You will find somebody who hold on to their sanity. They might not need tablets then, because there is support. I have done this as not just an experiment, but also as support. I have had to work with people 30 days in my community following a breakup, because I realized how debilitating a breakup is. So I had to work with these people for 30 days, non-stop. I know that I've worked with about 5 people following a breakup around in the time of COVID and after COVID for 30 days non-stop. And it helped immensely. And for 1 or 2 of them, I remember the man came back. One of them, the man came back before it was even 30 days, because he was looking for her left, right, and center. That's because she didn't chase, she didn't prompt him, she didn't beg, she didn't try to change anything after the breakup, which is what some people do in order to cope. They start calling their ex, they start looking for their ex, they start harassing their ex, they start doing all sorts of things. But we didn't do that. And I said, if you want to call somebody, call me. And I spent an hour every day with her, and the man came back. And when the man came back, we had a strategy in place. Because I was working with her, we had a strategy in place. And we said, he needs to hold on. And I said, do not accept him at home. Go and meet him out there. And they met out in public, and they talked, and then they started talking and planning to date again. So it's important that we have a plan for people who break up. At the same time, what I'm telling you also is important. When you break up with somebody, don't be quick to take them back, even if you love them so much. You need to start inner work. And then when they come back, you need to have a plan in place and sit down and talk and find out what has changed. Don't just accept somebody just like that. Thank you so much, IKP, and thanks for tapping. Thanks, Elima and Lovely and everyone else for being here. So it's important that we look into our breakup. So infidelity and divorce, the reconnection is the same. When your partner is cheated and you want to get back together, you've got to have started some kind of work, both of you, and you can only go back when you know you can trust them a little bit. I know you can't trust them, all the way, but you've got to trust them a little bit, and they have to be trustworthy. Because the problem is, if you just go back, you're not respecting yourself, and so they don't have any reason to stop. This is what I tell people. If you go back when issues or the situation has not been resolved, you are just going back to the same problems, and it's not going to help you at all. If you want a healthy relationship, you need to start healing work. You can ask your ex to pause a bit, to stop a bit, to wait a bit. It's okay. There is no rush. If you want forever after, they can wait. And then you can say to them, I'm not saying I don't want to be with you, but I've started my work and I really need to be somewhere where we can create a healthy relationship, because I don't think we're doing this right. And I don't think our situation was healthy. So at the end of the day, thank you so much for your, Mr. T. Thank you so much, Mr. TK. So it's important that you look into how you are doing your relationship, and also to refuse bad treatment and to refuse to settle for anything that's not good enough for you, that's not healthy. Because at the end of the day, you need to be in a healthy relationship. At the end of the day, you need to be safe and you need to enjoy your relationships. And if you are not safe in your relationships, then there's no quality of life. And when there's no quality of life, at the end of your days, we are here impermanently. We are not here forever. You're going to look back and think, is this the life that I lived? Do I admire the life that I lived? We need to have a bit of admiration of the life that we have lived. It's very important for us and for our well-being. It's good to have a little bit fulfilling life, not 100% maybe, but a bit fulfilling life, because life is short. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm thanking all of you who have been here today to listen to this conversation. I invite you to heal your life. I invite you to improve and strengthen your self-relationship. I invite you to learn emotional intelligence, to manage yourself so that you can make decisions in your life. And even when you come to social media for advice, at least you can get advice, but the final decision rests with you, because you are in charge of your life. And I also invite you in the healing to look into having a system of living. So it's important that you look into having a system of living and improve how you show up in your life, so that you don't have any life crisis. And you also look at the 4 dimensions of existence and make sure your healing incorporates all 4 of them, so that when you don't suffer a crisis. Because as I was saying, many people heal their lives, but they forget about the spiritual element of life. You do need to look into your spirituality and your spiritual body and nurture it. And you're not going to do any strange things. You are needing to meditate. You are needing to look into your emotions. It can also be linked to your psychologically in some aspects. Your meditation, you need to tune into your emotions and use them as your guidance system. You don't disregard your emotions, because they guide you to know that this is not good for you and this is good for you. That is not just a psychological element of you, that is also spiritual. Because something is telling you through your emotions, through the discomfort you are feeling in that toxic relationship, that this is not good for you. So you need to pay attention to your emotions. And then your purpose. Your spiritual life requires your purpose. You need to know there's something out there bigger than you. You need to look into what your purpose is. And you don't have to dig deeper or anything. You can simply do something for another person. You can simply support others. You can simply give something you have, whether it's words of affirmation, support, whether it's advice, whether it's a resource, whether it's money, whether it's a piece of clothing that you no longer wear and you recognize someone needs it. So instead of throwing it in the bin, you're going to give it to somebody. But make it a habit to be doing something for your purpose. Make it a habit. Don't hold off for too long without doing something for other people out there, or for a charity, or for a purpose. That's very important, because our spiritual life suffers when we don't have a purpose. We become aimless. So it's important that we look into that, and we look into a system of living. We need to live by a system. Do I have a system by which I live? And is this system helping me? And if I am struggling, I can look back at my system, maybe love on 3 levels. I am struggling right now in my life. What is the problem with my first level, or my second level, or third level? You might find that out, that you've got no support. You don't have a second level, you don't have a support system. We all need a support system. Go and meet people. Some people always find it an issue to make friends. They think it's difficult. You don't need to have very, very close friends. You can have people you interact with who can then be there for you when you have issues, or they can be there for you and you can also be there for them. It works both ways. Even if it's tentatively, to just have people there for you and people you are there for. You don't have to be that close, but it's important you have some kind of circle. But if you can't make friends, if you don't have a circle, you can go out and help other people. And when you help other people, you can create friends there. When you go and meet people, you can also get closer to 1 or 2 people. So that's important for you to do, so that when you have a problem, you are not alone. Because many people struggle with mental health challenges, with social anxiety, with social isolation, because they don't have friends, they don't have family, they don't have people who are close to them. So it's important that we look into that. I am hoping that this has been helpful for you. We've got an app, self-reparenting app, which is the link is on my page. And if people are looking for community and healing tools, there are courses in that app. There are courses on boundaries. There are courses on breakup and reconnection. There are courses on dating. There are courses on healing the inner child. There are courses on anything that you can think of to do with relationship. And if you are joining that community and you've got a question and a course that's missing, we can create it very easily. This is what I do. I create tools for healing, because I have found that people need tools out there and people need support out there. I've got the books, the tools on Amazon. I think I'll be putting them on on TikTok, some of them, so that people can have access to them, because we need tools. Sometimes if you cannot do the work with somebody, you need tools. But I encourage people to avoid isolation. Yes, you can buy a tool book, but join a support group and get help with those tools so that you can be in a better place. I'm hoping that's helpful, and I'm thanking all of you for listening. Elima, lovely, everyone else on Facebook and on TikTok, Mr. TK and ISP, thank you so much, and everyone else who has been here today. And I will see you very soon. Mr. TK, thank you for the gifts, and IKSP, thank you so much, and for the tapping. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you all. Okay, I will see you soon. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.